2 full-time jobs, still sleeping in the car. This isn't a politician's speech or a journalist's report. It's a real comment from an ordinary American under a video. The person in the video is spending nights in their car, not begging, not crying, just stating a fact. Working hard is no longer enough to let you live with dignity. We've been told since childhood, work hard and everything will be fine. But when work can't get you a roof overhead, when did that promise disappear? This isn't a story about losers. It's about a new class taking shape. If you think this doesn't concern you, you might need to finish reading more than anyone. When wages can't keep up with rent. Once upon a time, a full-time job could get you 3 things: a roof, dinner, a good night's sleep. Not wealthy, but enough. And now? Over the past decade, average wages in America have risen 20%, but rent in many states has jumped 40%, 50%, even 70%. You climb one rung up the ladder while rent leaps 2 or 3. This gap isn't because you did something wrong. It's because work only measures quantity, not whether it can sustain a person. You might have 2 jobs, 50 or 60 hours a week, but these jobs are designed to fill time, not guarantee survival. The system says you have a job, but stays silent on, is it enough to live? So we see this picture, someone in their 50s showing up to work on time, filling up their gas regularly, but can't write down a legal address on a rental application. No address means no apartment. No apartment means no address. A cold, vicious cycle with nobody accountable. The comments section reads, 2 full-time jobs, still homeless. Not complaining, just a status report. Someone sleeping in a Honda Accord in a parking lot, using their gym membership to shower, eating fast food, working during the day, pulling the curtains at night, praying nobody knocks. This sounds like a choice? We've been taught hard work brings stability, but the system changed the rules and forgot to notify us. A recent piece of irony. In today's America, work keeps you from starving, and housing is a privilege. Sounds funny, but hard to argue with. The question is no longer, why sleep in a car, but why does society accept that people with full-time jobs have nowhere to sleep? Who's benefiting? To understand a problem, don't just look at who's suffering. Look at who's benefiting. When workers sleep in their cars, who are the winners? We hear about supply shortages and market forces. Sounds neutral. But look closer, and housing has become a financial asset, optimized like stocks. A handful of companies own tens of thousands of apartments across multiple states. They don't need to upgrade kitchens or fix roofs. Just send an email. Rent's going up $300 next month. $300 isn't a fancy meal. It's a month's gas. For grocery trips, the second time you consider postponing the doctor. For renters, it's a gut punch. For the balance sheet, it's just a number. When housing is measured by return on investment, people become secondary costs. You're no longer a tenant, you're monthly cash flow. If the cash flow weakens, the system doesn't ask why you're struggling, just looks for stronger flow. Many middle-class families are being quietly pushed to the edge, not because they did something wrong, but because by the new standards they're not efficient enough. Someone said, every time they mention affordable housing, it's never affordable. Today's affordable just means still profitable, but sounds better. Affordable for whom? Retirees on fixed pensions? Night shift workers with aching backs? Or quarterly reports? The irony, housing is very affordable now, just not for the people living in it. When housing stops being a right and becomes a commodity optimized for profit, people sleeping in cars is no longer surprising. It's not an accident. It's the logical outcome of the system. Survival becomes illegal. There's a phrase that rings increasingly true. You didn't break the law, you just don't have a home. Today in many American cities, sleeping in your car, parking overnight, or staying somewhere too long can all become problems. You don't need to cause trouble or hurt anyone. Just exist in the wrong place. It's 2 a.m., freezing cold. You've worked all day and parked in a lot, not blocking anyone. Then comes the knock on the window. Not because you're dangerous, but because you don't belong here. Many people say, don't post it online or they'll make laws targeting you. That's a warning, and it's the truth. When problems aren't solved at the root, the easiest solution is pushing them out of sight. Instead of asking why workers sleep in cars, the system asks, how do we stop them from showing up? Poverty gets treated as behavior needing control, not circumstances needing support. No home means no legal place to sleep. No place to sleep means breaking rules. A silent cycle nobody speaks, but everyone understands. The result? Workers start hiding. Arrive late, leave early, close windows, turn off lights, don't idle long, don't draw attention. Some call it stealth camping. Sounds like travel, but it's a survival skill. Surviving in the heart of a developed society. Someone likes parking at casino lots. Not for gambling, but because it's crowded, harder to get noticed, easier to blend in. One car among hundreds, invisible but safer. This isn't how society treats criminals. It's how it treats people without a clear place. The irony. The American dream is still here, but you have to whisper it. Because saying out loud you live in your car isn't just telling a story. It's putting yourself in the crosshairs of new regulations, unfriendly stares, and difficult questions. The saddest part? These people aren't asking for anything. They just want to work quietly, sleep well, keep living. The cost of health. Simple truth. The human body wasn't designed to live in a car. Cars are designed for moving, not for sleeping, recovering, or aging. Yet more and more Americans are doing exactly that. Not for a few nights, but months, even years. Let's start with cold. What's 20 or 30 degrees Fahrenheit? It's waking up at 3 a.m. frozen because your feet are numb, even in 2 pairs of socks. It's running the heater for a few minutes, then shutting it off. Not because you're warm, but afraid of burning gas, damaging the engine, or attracting attention. Then there's food. No kitchen, no fridge, no cooking space. The cheapest solution is fast food. You save on rent, but slowly pay with blood sugar, blood pressure, your stomach, and cardiovascular health. And there's movement. Living in a car means sitting constantly. Sitting while driving, eating, working, waiting for daylight. Not good for a 25-year-old. For someone 50 or 60, it's quietly accumulating health debt. But the most corrosive part isn't physical, it's mental. Living in a car isn't just lacking space, it's chronic stress. Always thinking, where do I park tonight? Will someone knock? Is it safe? Is anyone watching? You can never truly rest, even while sleeping. A bitter paradox. These people are extremely disciplined, strict schedules, every dollar counted, behavior restrained to invisibility. Yet ultimately they're still accused of wrong choices. A comparison that sounds like a joke but rings true. You save on rent but pay with years of your life. The question isn't whether living in a car is hard. That's obvious. It's whether, if society forces workers to trade health for survival, that's still a choice. If it's not a choice but the only path left, we have to ask, who gets to call it a lifestyle? Because looking at the difference between a $200,000 RV and a freezing old car at midnight, the gap isn't just money. It's safety, rest, and the right to live like a human being. The lie of choice. Is living in a car a choice or a last resort? On social media, you see beautiful images, shiny RVs, mountain views, coffee, laptops. They call it van life. Sounds like a well-thought-out decision. But the comments say, living in a car sucks. No filter, no music, no hashtags. The truth is two completely different worlds get lumped into one word: choice. On one side are Sprinter vans worth $50,000 to $200,000 with batteries, heaters, kitchens, space to stand, apartments on wheels. On the other side are old cars with thin mattresses, trunks stuffed with clothes, and at night the question, where can I park without being bothered? Both live in vehicles, but calling them the same choice is like saying dining at a steakhouse and eating instant noodles in your car are the same culinary experience. When media conflates these images, we inadvertently turn desperation into a lifestyle. Then accountability vanishes quickly. Because if it's a choice, the system doesn't need to change. No need to ask why workers can't afford rent or why rent rises faster than wages. Just shrug. That's what they chose. It's convenient. Convenient for blaming individuals, downplaying heavy topics, and maintaining the sense of security for those who think, I'm different from them. But comments hint at the opposite. Any of us could end up there. Not pessimism, but understanding how thin the line is between stability and falling through. One piece of irony. Some call it a lifestyle, others call it tonight. When you call a survival situation a choice, you also strip people of their right to legitimate anger. Because if it's a choice, they can't complain. That might be the biggest lie of choice. The question isn't, why did they choose to live in their car, but what led to a society where this is considered a reasonable option? When you honestly face that question, an unsettling thought emerges. It's not about them. It's about how fast the distance between you and them is shrinking. Because if choice is still someone else's story today, tomorrow it might become yours. That's when the real fear begins. The new fear: how close are you to the edge? There's a strange moment many of us have experienced but rarely discuss. You're driving late at night past a parking lot. A car sits quietly with slightly fogged windows, no noise, no begging. For the first time, you don't think, "I pity them." You think, if a few things went wrong, that could be me. This is America's new fear. No longer will I fail, but I'm standing closer to the edge than I thought. One number: $5,000. For many middle-aged people, that's savings proudly accumulated after years of hard work. But what is $5,000 today? A few months' rent, a few doctor visits, a couple of major car repairs. Not a life raft, just a thin cushion. It only takes one event: back pain, illness, divorce, or a layoff email, very polite and brief. Miss one beat, and you're not sliding slowly. You're in free fall. What makes this fear spread isn't the news, it's the silence. Comments repeat: arrive late, leave early, leave no trace. Sounds like survival advice, but it's actually the manifesto of a class trying to maintain dignity in silence. They're not afraid of work. They're afraid of being seen at their weakest, afraid of being labeled, afraid that once they fall, there's no way back. Some people are starting to sleep at airports. Not because they love travel, but because airports have lights, security, Wi-Fi, and most importantly, you can be present without being asked, "What are you doing here?" Someone put it directly: "I'm not homeless. I just temporarily don't have a place to live." Sounds like wordplay, but it's psychological self-defense, a way to preserve some identity when everything else is shaking. This isn't the bottom of society, it's the edge of a cliff. Because the person you see in that car isn't someone whose life has always been ahead of yours. They're just a few months, a few decisions, a few events ahead of you. So the question isn't, why did they fall, but what makes so many people stand so close to the edge while pretending they're safe? When you truly face that question, an uncomfortable thought emerges. Maybe America's biggest fear today isn't realizing the threat exists, but realizing the security once promised is now more fragile than ever. Is this by design? Here's a slightly uncomfortable hypothesis worth considering. What if what we're seeing isn't a system malfunction, but its outcome? From a distance, everything looks fine. Companies are still hiring, markets are functioning, houses are being built, just not for everyone. Workers have jobs, just not enough to stay afloat. It's precisely this gap that creates something useful for any economy: cheap but docile labor. When rent takes 40 to 50% or more of income, when one late bill can shake everything, you don't have energy for big questions. You focus on survival, keeping the job, keeping the car, keeping the parking spot. Fear becomes an effective tool for regulating behavior without anyone giving orders. Housing scarcity doesn't just drive up prices. It creates constant pressure, like a string always pulled taut. You can be late once, but don't dare twice. You might be unhappy, but don't dare speak too loudly. Ironic, but true. You don't need chains, just bills. When people are busy paying rent, there's no time to think about the structure that created that bill. And when living in a car gets called a lifestyle, social pressure eases. No longer a system failure, just a personal choice. Convenient for everyone except those trying to sleep inside. Look closely. A society where workers must hide to survive, where a roof becomes a reward rather than a basic condition, operates on clear logic. Nobody needs to be a villain, no conspiracy required, just priorities arranged so profit comes before people. Then we ask, why is everyone exhausted? Tense? Afraid of being next? Maybe because this system doesn't need you happy, it just needs you to keep running. A sober invitation. If you've made it this far, you probably feel some unease. Because this story isn't about distant them. It's about that fragile line between stability and falling through. More Americans than ever are standing closer to that line. This isn't criticizing anyone or blaming individuals. This isn't a call to anger. It's an invitation to sober reflection. What do you think? Is this a temporary crisis or a new order forming? What part of the video strikes you as most accurate or most disturbing? Leave a comment. We don't need to agree, just be honest. If you think conversations like this need to happen, please subscribe to the channel, share the video, and let's keep analyzing the questions many places avoid. This video aims to analyze social and economic issues based on public data and shared experiences, with no intent to attack any individual or organization or promote extreme views. Thanks for watching.